Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Karibuni sana to our session today on the digital economy and specifically on digital taxation. I would like to welcome our speaker who is already on board, and that is Gibson Gisore Nyamato, who's a lecturer at the Kenyatta University. Our other speakers, Shafiq of Taibe Consultants, and also young mediator Rashid Mbwiza. We expect them also on the call. We welcome our host for today, Madam Diana Oyugi, who is the co-chair for our Women in Mediation Leadership. And we really thank her for putting together this session for us. And we are looking forward to a very exciting discussion as we do advance on. We will start off with the national anthem, and then after the national anthem, which is on the chat, the first stanza in Kiswahili, then we will proceed on with our host for today, Diana Oyugi, inviting our speaker who's on board, Gibson Gisore, and then we will follow up with the other speakers as we advance on. So ladies and gentlemen, I will recite the words of our national anthem as a prayer for our nation and also for the whole world. Mungu nguvu yetu, ilete baraka kwetu, haki iwe ngao na mlinzi, na tukae na undugu, amani na uhuru, raha tupate na ustawi. With that, I once again welcome you ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana. And as our co-host, as our host today, Diana Oyugi is taking over to introduce our guests. I wish to share a report that has been released by the McKinsey Consulting, and it's really just a few lines that speak into where they see after conducting a research Africa is moving into, which makes this discussion that we are having very, very relevant. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the title of the McKinsey report is Reopening and Reimagining Africa, How the COVID-19 Crisis Can Catalyze Change. And I will just read a segment of it. Reimagine African Society. If governments, businesses, development partners, and citizens act with renewed purpose and imagination now, they can help ensure that COVID-19 catalyzes positive, sustainable social change and a desirable new normal. The three key opportunities to reimagine societies are to: 1, accelerate Africa's digital transformation. Number 2, put renewed focus on serving the needs of vulnerable urban population. Number 3, transform African healthcare systems for resilience and equity. The second part of the report talks about reimagine African business. And the report says, COVID-19 has sparked extraordinary action as companies contribute to bolstering healthcare and find new ways to serve stakeholders. The crisis could catalyze long-term transformations. We outline 3 key opportunities for reimagining business. Number 1, strengthen sector competitiveness through consolidation and innovation. Number 2, reshape manufacturing with a focus on resilience. Number 3, catalyze the formalization of African economies. The third part of the report talks about reimagine African government. So the first one was reimagine African society, the second, reimagine African business, and the third, reimagine African government. Governments are taking important steps to contain the virus and mitigate its economic fallout. In so doing, they have taken on significantly larger roles in the economy and society. Intergovernmental institutions have also acted with speed, decisiveness, and collaboration. If this can be sustained, the benefits for Africa's people could be immense. The report outlines 3 key opportunities for reimagining government. Number 1, plan for a more active government role in the economy. Number 2, forge a stronger social contract between citizens and government. Number 3, sustain momentum in regional and Pan-African cooperation. These were interviews that were conducted by McKinsey, and at the same time its own analysis, and it makes it very clear that COVID-19 can actually provide positive transformation for not only Kenya, but also for our region. And really, as we look at this report, it's also asking ourselves as Mediator, how do we reimagine professional mediation practice in Kenya and in Africa? That has been the essence of the Kenya COVID-19 mediation initiative platform. The discussions, deliberations we've been having is to get us engaged as we think about how do we reimagine our profession or our vocation. My name is Wangari Kabiru, the convener of Wasilianahub, and as I welcome you again, I say thank you for joining us, and over to our host, Madam Diana Oyugi. Thank you, Madam Diana.
Hello, thank you very much.
Welcome, Madam Diana.
Wangari Kabiru. Thank you for a very nice breakdown of reimagining Africa in different spheres of the society. Thank you also for convening the meeting well. I want to thank each and every one of you. I would like to invite each and every one of you once more. And I thank you also for taking your time this wonderful evening to join with us. And instead of taking much time, because of the very nice breakdown that Wangari has taken us through, I think I'll just forward this meeting straight to Mr. Nyamato, because we know the time we have and what lies in store for us. And we're each looking forward for a wonderful meeting. So I'll welcome Mr. Nyamato, please. You're most welcome. Mr. Gibson Nayamto, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Diana. I hope all of you are having a good evening, and this post-budget reading and the COVID era, which is still existing, I hope everybody is in good health. I want to thank everyone who has signed up for this webinar, because this is what we need to do, because we need to understand where we're coming from and where we're headed now that we already have the budget. In the previous discussions, I think we've been focusing on theories. Now we have the practicals. Now we have the practical bit where we already have the budget. We know where the money is going, what is the priority for the government. And thank you, Diana, for the introduction, and Wangari for the breakdown of the McKinsey report, which is really very key, because McKinsey do rate and focus countries on development and issues of what they should be prioritizing on the key international organization, which their report should not be taken lightheartedly, because it's an international organization. If it gives us a bad rating, it means we are doing badly. At least for Africa, we haven't started doing ourselves a favor by, of course, trying to examine ourselves. We have to rely on other bodies like McKinsey and the international bodies and Moody's to rate us, which is unfortunate. I think we need to rethink where because for these organizations, I guess if you can spare me, I don't know whether you have attachments with these organizations. If we could, these people only focus on areas which they want to focus on. But you see, the economy is ours. We need to also open our eyes and be able to create our focus areas where we need to know what is happening. The biggest hindrance in the development of Africa as a whole, save for some other economies, some few like South Africa, though they are also not doing so well at that, we have not owned our own process of self-emancipation, having to get our own money to focus our energies on specific target areas where all we are still depending on is the pre-colonial era thematic schemes. If the international funders decide that these are the areas we're going to fund, that is where the government puts its focus on. With this budget, I'm trying to see some kind of waking up, and I hope other African countries are going to do the same. And that's actually what Wangari has highlighted on the McKinsey report, that Africans will need to look to do self-introspection, look inwards, and be able to further their industries, be able to further their service sectors, to be able to do trade between themselves. That could really help us a big deal. It's unfortunate that at this point, we had some studies some time back, and it was concluded that the East African community is the most integrated region in the whole of Africa. So leave alone this SADC thing and the ECOWAS thing they're trying to come up with there, but the way we are disorganized in the East African community, even we cannot allow goods to move to a neighboring country. We are the most. We need to take pride that we are the most integrated community. With all this confusion, instead of streamlining things, still we are rated at the best. So at this rate, we need to actually realize that trading between ourselves is what is going to enhance our economies. There is more money within the region than even the kind of trade deals we are signing with America, for God's sake. I'm surprised that our president went to sign an agreement with America, which is very unfortunate, because that is like it's akin to what Nyerere used to say, that it's a heavyweight boxer fighting with a 15-year-old, because our economy is not mature to the level of the US to engage in competent trade. All they need to do is what we had under the AGOA. Now, I think the Trump administration is not keen on enhancing AGOA, because AGOA was basically to help Africans export goods to the US and access the markets without any much strings attached. But now, if you are being asked that now you're going to be partners with the US, and then they will be exporting their heavily subsidized goods to Africa, for example, we say wheat, we'll have to forget about wheat farming in Kenya for the meantime, for us to engage in competent trade with them. You realize under the same circumstances, we are still importing rice while we can be able to farm ours. It means our wheat farmers are not going to be paid, because what is the need to pay a Kenyan farmer who sells his wheat at an exorbitant price, while there is a cheaper one coming from abroad, which we have international obligations to take in without question. In exchange, what will we be exporting to the US? Nothing much. Nothing much. It means we are going to, our industries will have to close down, our farming will have to close down. So those are some of the things, and a friend of mine, I guess, this is a subject of a case under the East African community, because the priority for signing bilateral agreements should be done regionally, in that way in the East African community. But Kenya and our good president went ahead and jumped the gun and started into these trade agreements, which potentially will hurt Kenya. And that is a subject of a court case in the Arusha court, the East African Community Court, and we are hoping we get a favorable judgment out of that court. because even the community is surprised, because Kenya went against the provisions of it ought to have consulted the other members of the community, because that wheat, whatever that will be importing from the US, might not end up only being in Kenya alone, might end up in these other countries, so it will affect the whole region. So that's why it's important, before getting into any kind of bilateral or multilateral treaties, each country or each member country, at least in the East African community, should be able to consult the other members and see whether is it better for forging ahead of the community, or is it going to affect the members? That is just a side talk before we get into our budget statement. So I think, having said that, now, Diana, I think I'm allowed to proceed into the provisions of. I can't get you.
Yes, please proceed with the budget report, post-budget report.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So this budget, my looking at this budget, basically, it's a budget like somebody who is supposed to do so much, or who has very big needs but has very little on the table to give in terms of supporting these particular needs. And that's, I think, the position under which our good CS found himself under, and yet to do the best out of the situation, or out of the circumstance, to be able to come up with something at least which looks like it's going to work. So why am I saying so? Much as we are saying this is a budget which is supposed to be helping the lowly, it's like it's giving from one hand and stealing from the other hand. The one which is taking from the other hand, sorry for using stealing, it seems to be much more than what it's giving, or even the things which it claims to be giving are, in my own analysis, are questionable, because we can't be claiming to be supporting an economy where people have lost jobs, while you are making everything that people depend on a daily life to be costly, to be quite costly. So that in a while, in my own analysis, is a paradox. But then I've explained that the reason for that, because I mean, you have so much, but you don't have enough to be able to mitigate all this. It's akin to the story of the Mombasa lady who had, I don't know, 5 kids, and she had nothing to give them, and she just to give them the hope that we are going to pull through this, she had to put stones on the sufuria, and they kept cooking, and the kids had hope that something is going to come out of that sufuria. All that they didn't know is that there's nothing coming out, it's only stones which are cooking to give them hope, so that they fall asleep and they will be able to see tomorrow where things will where they will wake up from, and maybe things will be better. That is akin to what we're being told here. The basic example I can use is you want to improve an economy, but you're telling people that first, before we improve the economy, let's first sweep this compound clean. I mean, are you looking at what people are eating, or you are first telling them what is the use of cleanness if you have not eaten first? That is what I'm likening to the Kazi kwa Vijana initiative. I mean, we have been there. These are roads we have walked down before, because we had a similar initiative, I think, during the 2007-2008, after the 2007-2008 crisis. We had a similar something of the sort where a lot of money got lost. And this is the easiest way to just get state resources. State resources easily, without question, because who will keep the register of the Kazi kwa Vijana? How many youths will have been? Of course, they are giving the statistics, but who will be following each of these and be able to confirm whether they are even real people? But the money will have to be spent, whichever way. Money will have to be spent, and we hope that it's actually something which is going to. There was another scheme of cash disbursements. I can't hear of it anymore, because I haven't seen anybody who has received this money. There are a lot of people suffering. but it's our government. They have to give us some hope, some sort of hope that things are going to work, and that is the major reason that they're going to do this. But it sounds as a good move, but as to how it's going to be managed, between me and you, we know that there's going to be challenges. There's going to be challenges at the end of the day. But basically, on paper, this is the best we could come up with, because in my analysis from the statement itself, it looks colorful, looks interesting. But we hope, let's keep up the hope that tomorrow is gonna bear better things for us, not what we're used to. But this is going to also attract a scenario whereby we will need now to demand more accountability from the government, and the way it has said it has put this money, we will need to see where this money has really gone and what has it been able to do. And I guess with the government being constrained is a good thing, because as of now you can see a lot of government officials being put under pressure. I think EACC, this is the farthest I've seen EACC work so hard, because every now and then they are reporting they're taking people to court over misuse of funds, and they are even been able to procure the judgments in their favor, to the effect that people have been found guilty, people have been fined, people have been put into prison, and that gives us hope that things are changing for the better. If we keep at this, then there will be some semblance of better hope that things are going to work. So we have suffered several pandemics. I could say there was the aspect of the locust before the pandemic hit. That of course affects Kenya, because Kenya is an agricultural economy. That really severely affected, and I don't know whether they went or they are still around, because nobody's talking. And then there came the floods, and then the coronavirus. So it's like we were hit with 3 pandemics at one go. So with that, the government has to come up with a way of cushioning. But the cushioning, to my level, I think it was not done as we could have expected. But so I've said also, is a situation where they were trying to make to do with what they have. So the broad areas under the budget which they're going to look at is the mitigation for the COVID-19. There is the maintaining of the microeconomic stability, so that they can be able to have people back on the jobs, and then once people are back on the jobs, means they'll be getting some tax, which in exchange will be used to fund the budget. There's the issue of recovery and the growth of economic scale and medium enterprises, which is what actually touches more people in the country. And then the Big Four agenda, which is also going to be supported to a larger extent. Of course, that is going to be the best project for the legacy of the president. There's also some enhancement of allocation for support of development of infrastructure. With the floods, I think most of the roads were swept. I think we are seeing some progress in Nairobi, with the Nairobi Metropolitan. At least those of you who have been to the city, you have seen that there are cleaner walkways, there are better walkways, even where they weren't. They're being rehabilitated, and that's at least a positive move. There's also some money will be put into the railways, into the energy and water. All that is going to improve the ease of or the cost of doing business, which in turn will have returns. There is the issue of support to youth, women, and persons with disabilities. There's also scale up and resources allocated to education sector, of course, to strengthen the education sector. And then the health services, which have been badly hit. We will also see some allocation to it, which hopefully will change the situation and mitigate the corona effects and other diseases. Of course, the county government and strengthening the service delivery at the county government, which has been very inefficient in some counties. with that, I think it will also promote the growth of the economy. There is also the implementation of various structural reforms to enhance efficiency of the public sector. So this, we are likely to see a lot of changes. I think a couple of non-performing organizations will have to be restructured. Other organizations which have been consuming money instead of making money will also be restructured effectively, so people will have to lose some jobs, or people will have to so that these organizations stay afloat or they become efficient. Because when you're having a situation like we're having in our country, it's only foolish to continue having the more than 100 parastatals, which some others we have never even heard of, or we don't know what they do, and you still keep pouring money into them and they're not bringing it. So it's only wise that you combine them and then they be able to be more efficient. They have a leaner workforce, and then of course their performance outputs will have to be measured to ensure that is in tandem. And of course reduce corruption. So those are the policy level. At the policy level, that is where the budget money is going to go. Breaking it down further into specific infrastructure, I see they're indicating that 5 billion will be used for rehabilitation of roads which have been damaged, I guess, by the floods, and the floods, I guess, in some areas are still on. Then there's some 10 billion for Kazi kwa Vijana program, of course, to help the youth in major cities, that's Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, and Nakuru. So that they do not, this could be the youths who are either jobless or those ones who have lost their jobs, so that they could get something and at the same time contribute to the development of these towns in one way or another, and at the end of the day they will be able to support their families or have something in their pockets. There is the aspect of improving education and its outcome. 7.4 billion has been allocated to that, to employ more teachers, given that others will be retiring. And of course there's also one to support local artisans and builders in the building industry. Of course the builders will have to be local builders to build classrooms. I think they're talking of a number of classrooms, and of course 250,000 locally made desks. I don't know how the distribution will be done, because we have people like in the northern, the arid and semi-arid places who even don't have a roof over their head in form of a class. So you give them desks. I don't know how that is going to work, but for the places where we have people with classes, I think the desks will come in handy for them, because that could be the thing which is missing. So I think the infrastructure should have to be taken to those other places. We have other schools which have very big classes, so huge numbers. So I think infrastructure will also be an advantage to them, because at least the classes will have to be broken down so that one teacher is assigned a lesser number of students. There's also liquidity, enhancing liquidity in the market. Some money will be put seed capital, which will be given in terms of credit guarantee scheme from the government, so that this money goes to payment of vending bills. This has been a song for the last few years. I think people have not been paid. The beauty with doing this is that government is able to release money into the public, and this money in turn comes back as tax. If the money is stuck with government, then it does not generate much. But once it releases the money out there, people are able to invest in various things, and with this they will buy properties, with this they will employ people, with this they will be able to buy various services, and it has a multiplier effect. So, and then once government releases money out there, then, or if a government opts not to encourage liquidity to be able to be in the masses, then that government is likely not to get taxes. So with this, if you pay people who have supplied things to government, then it means you're helping them to find a means to survive. Then they will also be helping their families. They will be also be paying their debts. They will be putting this money in banks. Banks will make money. So there's that multiplier effect in various places. There's also the issue of improvement of health services. 1.2 billion has been allocated for recruitment of around 5,000 healthcare workers. I think we already did. I thought there was this under the stimulus package when a month or two ago. I don't know how this process has gone. I don't know whether it's one is replicating. But there's also the use of some 500 million to supply 20,000 locally made beds. At least with what Wangari was saying now, you see, most of the beds in our hospitals are not even made in Kenya. We import even beds. So with the process of having this 20,000 to stimulate people who make beds, they will need, so that the money doesn't go out. Because the major aim is now to maintain money locally, so that the money doesn't go out. When you go out, you give money out, you lose money. But when you maintain it locally, it's able to manufacture, it's able to multiply, and your people end up living better lives. There's also the issue of course, 25 million to support the establishment of modern walkways, I think. And then the issue of sanitizers at all border points and the main hospitals across the country. So that is a positive thing because it's going to stimulate the economy. There's also the agricultural sector where we are talking about 3 billion subsidies in agriculture. So that is a positive thing because I think this is the largest the government has ever given in terms of subsidies to farmers, and this is targeting 200,000 small-scale farmers. So we'll be talking about, I don't know, they'll be able to restructure this, but at least I think there have been very specific drop of 1.5 billion to go to flour and horticulture farmers. We do understand that flour plays a key role to is a major foreign exchange earner for our country. So we understand when they allocate such an amount to specifically to assist the flour sector, because it fetches us money. And then these others should be able to be allocated to other the sugar farmers. There are those who have never been paid for a long time, and then the others to be allocated to the maize farmers in the Rift Valley, who have also suffered some challenges, and the other sectors to improve the economy of through agriculture. There is also the tourism. A lot of tourism activities have gone down. So the tourism sector is employing roughly up to around 200,000 people. The service sector, and these people must have been either laid off or around they are languishing because of lack of business. So I saw a very nice proposal by Switzerland, whereby they gave a green bond to facilitate, because Switzerland also depends so much on tourism, and now that people can't be able to travel, they went to the international market and gave a green bond to assist the people who are relying, so that people can continue being paid, people can continue surviving, and people do not close shop. The hotel owners do not close shop and say, now this running of these hotels is becoming a challenge. So that is a way of a government coming in and it will help its people, because really the biggest thing you can ever do in this 2020, people said, is to survive. And for government to ensure that this happens, you have to make some certain decisions or choices. However, economically unsound they might look from the start, but once you know the end effect is saving lives, because the government does not do business by itself. It depends on its citizens to do business, but it won't do business if its people are dead. So it needs the human resource capacity to bring their creativity and the innovations on board, so that at the end of the day, they will be able to benefit from these innovations and creativity from the human resource. So the best thing for a government to do is to save lives. So there is also the aspect of improving the environment, that is through safeguarding the water towers and the likes. We realize that we are not doing well with the climate change. So I think some money will have to be put to safeguard the water tower so that we are assured of our future, because if our rivers dry, possibilities of us existing also diminishes with the diminishing waters in the rivers. So that becomes a challenge for Kenyans. So we don't need to be exposed that way. So by doing this, the Ethiopian government is doing a very good project at this. One day they planted around 200 million trees in one day. If we did that in Kenya, and we did that for over a couple of instances, it will ensure that because the only other thing we can be able to hand over down to our future generation, that is under the SDGs, is handing a clean and healthy environment. But if you hand in an environment to your kids and grandkids, which is already polluted, the rivers are polluted, the trees are cut down, it means you are killing the future of your kids. Personally, you will have to be a victim of the circumstances. So you will have, of course, created a scenario where you are causing your own personal problems. Because a lot of health issues do come with not living in a clean and healthy environment. So I guess that is a nice thinking by them to come up with a way of trying to look or take care of the environment. There's also the issue of manufacturing, which is also very key, which Wangari has highlighted in the McKinsey report, that manufacturing will have to be looked inborn. You realize with the COVID-19, it has taught us a great lesson. Up to now, we cannot be able actually to test enough people as we want, because the countries which manufacture these machines for testing for COVID, they also manufacture the machines, and they are also the producers of the reagents. If we had invested in our local production to a level that they can be able to make the reagents, or at least even make the machines, we could be able to get off quickly the ground with the testing programs. You realize the countries which have managed to test so many people and mitigate the challenges of COVID-19, like China, they do their own production. Germany in Europe is the least affected. Germany is the one which is known for producing health equipment and the reagents too, and the US also. There was a scenario whereby even the other countries, the developed countries, also didn't enhance their capacity of having their healthcare being checked properly. Like there was a scenario where France had ordered some equipment from US, and certain state, the producing state in the US, realized that they're likely not to have enough. So the best they did before the plane left, it was stopped at the runway. And turned back, and they were told there is no leaving because the state needs to first produce for your own before exporting. So that raises key challenges. The same, I think, happened also to the neighbor of the US in Canada. So we are not the only people suffering. So it's all across. So that sends a strong signal that you need to up your manufacturing sector. At the point of need, your neighbor might not be the best person to go to. Instead, you'll have to look at what it is that you have within your borders. And I guess putting money, it explains putting money, but as to whether the money put is enough is a question for another day, because we don't seem to have enough. But that is good enough for local assembly of vehicles. I hope they will make a clear decision that all government offices or government ministries do not import vehicles. They purchase locally assembled vehicles. That will be a big plus for the manufacturing of the vehicles locally, because when government starts and does something by leading by example, then the local market responds. There's no need we keep they always say Kenya is a Toyota nation. I mean, you are on the road and you're driving, the vehicle ahead of you will have to be a Toyota, or the one behind you too. So there's no need we keep helping the Japanese in the economy. Well, there's nothing much we're getting from them. So if we're able to, and we have the capacity to manufacture, we have industries here locally which do assembly of vehicles. So if it means it's only an engine we can be able to import from Japan, but the rest of the body parts you can make them locally, it means those are jobs locally. We used to manufacture tires, vehicle tires, but up to now I think we don't produce them anymore because it became uncompetitive, because we allowed the Chinese to bring in their tires and we close our shop for manufacturing, and that's a challenge. But now I think we need to restart the engine again and then be able to have these factories which were producing requested to produce. So that is very important. The best thing, I guess, for us with the reading of the budget is to agree among the East African community, as it used to be before it died in 1977. We agree some key services to be domiciled or be based in a particular country, so that you know all your importing of maybe health equipment should have come from Uganda, but the rest of the things, manufacturing of vehicles, doing of everything, will have to come from Kenya. So you see that brings the community together, that brings empowerment of the community. But now if each country keeps doing its own thing separately, but we claim to be exporting and importing between ourselves, and while the things we are importing and exporting are actually raw materials, either raw materials or imported goods, it means we're not doing a service to ourselves. That's why I'm thinking the best strategy to deal with the situation first is to trade among ourselves. In the Asian countries, for them to have grown the economy to where they have grown, the best they did, the trading scale between the communities is above 36%. I think the last time it was above 25, but I think the last time I checked, I had somebody say it has gone to 36% within the countries. And for China, it should be even where China and India, that goes beyond. We're talking of the least economies, talk of the Philippines, the small countries, which they are trading within themselves to a level of 36%, while what we are doing in the East African community is less than 10%. So we need to up this. We need to up this to at least a level of 25% within ourselves. We will not be able to depend on Western powers, because most of the things we need, if we do it to up to even 40 or 50%, we will at least be able to do something solid for ourselves. It will ensure that our neighbors grow, and our neighbors also serve as market for our goods, which is sure and steady. You know, with neighbors, there are no sanctions. Or if a neighbor tries to pull sanctions on you, they know that they're going to lose something, so they wouldn't want to pull such games. So that is how you end up safeguarding yourself. That's what the European Union did. And that's what has made them go very far. Just a lesson for you to learn from. Before the collapse of the East African community in 1977, East African community was doing so well than the European Union that they had to come to do benchmarking in the East African community. But after that, we collapsed our East African community. For them, they proceeded with their game plan. That's why they have been so far. They have been able to achieve so much, and we are depending on them totally, while we killed ours. So this is what we're talking about. We need, wherever we were, whatever plans that we had as a country or as a community previously or prior, we need to revisit them and be able to put them together and then be able to move with speed. I'm glad that in the last holiday, the president was trying to highlight the Kenyan dream from the founders of the nation, where we might have lost track. That's a good place to start. Where did we lose track? what is it that we missed, so that we put it in place and we move, because that is where we lost our track. And if we are able to fix that, then we'll be in a better place. So in terms of the winners and losers, of course, youths are the winners with the 10 billion budget on shot in their arms, the kazi kwa vijana. There's also the MSMEs with the 3 billion, and there's also farmers for the 3 billion. But this is where I was saying whether this is really enough. We can't be reading a budget of 2.7 trillion with what we are claiming is going to the masses, which is just a drop in the ocean, which does not do much. It does not have very real figures, while the rest of the money is not actually. Then the people who are going to lose out are, of course, the tax to the companies, which it's now mandatory. If you have a company, you'll have to pay a minimum of 1% of all your turnover. And then, of course, the digital services, which I guess somebody is going to discuss on the digital tax, in the perspective that now we are now taxing each. We are touching where it hurts most, because the only other free thing we enjoyed was internet, but now it's not going longer to be business as usual. At least if you touch your phone, you'll have to think twice before downloading that music, or downloading that movie to entertain yourself after a very rough day. So you know that the government will have to rob you first before you start your entertainment. So those are some of then of course foreign contractors, which has been a big issue because the foreign contractors are doing pretty much everything. Now we'll have to look at our local contractors will be supported on how to be able to do. When we talk of foreign contractors, of course, it means we're not going to do any major project now, which involves foreigners, because we are trying to help our people survive. So it's to give them kazi kwa vijana, mtaani, building of classes. So it means that's what the government is projecting. It's not anticipating to do any major road projects, which are going to be in the domain of foreign contractors. That's what at least the budget is ready. So if at all that is going to happen, still it's going to happen, then maybe the contractor will have to seek external, which has been the case anyway, which does not help us as much because, like the Chinese, the money never leaves China, and that's where the challenge is. They do every costing, the money is assigned there, but it never comes. They only export people here to go and do the work and the engineers, and then it's paid in China. It's paid to the Chinese bank. So that becomes a challenge. That's where the SGR has not been able to benefit. There's no local, real, tangible benefit because the money was not being used here locally. We were just receiving crumbs, and that becomes a challenge. There are other proposals which are quite interesting, which are going to be a pain on Kenyans. The issue of the proposed toll payment, or there's a toll road act which is going to be amended to be able to put into place the issue of toll roads, whereby we will be able, when you want to drive, I think they are doing a road between the airport the other day. So the contractor, I think, is on the ground. From the airport, they're trying to do the one to James Gishuru. So it's going to be one of the toll roads. I was listening to Masharia, the CS4, and he was also talking of another road between Rironi, which is going to be done to Nakuru. And somebody was asking him, how is this going to work? It means everybody will be using the Nakuru Nairobi highway will be said, no, the one which is existing will have to be there for the ordinary folks to use, but they will have a separate road which will be now a toll road. If you want to use it is when you will need to pay. So basically, and I think that is being done by the French. I don't know whether they have amended that. So I think majorly those are the roads which will be told. I don't know whether they will do the southern bypass also for the trucks, but I guess the whole idea is to try and reduce damage to the roads, or at least pay before you use, so that they get some more tax for other purposes of making other roads. It's costly to do roads. I think the government is now thinking that not going to be free as usual. So if you use a road, you need to pay. But last time we had this discussion, somebody raised the aspect of double taxation. Still, you see, this government will need to get as much money as it needs. The issues of double tax, they consider is what is coming in. You need to get as much as possible. There is the issue of course, there is the aspect of duty free for mobile phone assembly parts, which is very interesting because this is already happening in Rwanda. They are already manufacturing actually the first black continent from the continent of Africa. It's manufactured in Rwanda, and they are busy selling. So
Gibson,
as we're not even talking of coming, we are just talking of assembly, which assembly I think Ethiopia has been doing for the last, I don't know, almost 10 years. So we'll be playing catch up to our neighbors. So this is a good thing, at least to have something to. So if I have to purchase my phone, I don't have to again go around and see and start looking at the manual. It means I could have somebody have it repaired if it's broken totally, locally, because the assembly is being done. There's the SGR, which is again still costing us 18 billion. This is the Nairobi Naivasha section. I don't know whether it's not complete or what, but thought this thing was launched, but some money is being still spent on that. Also 15 billion for the landlords. Landlords, I think the rent is going to increase because landlords have been enlisted to a level from 10 million. They have added, I think, 15 more. So it means the rental income tax is going to go up. In that it was increased from the 10% which they were paying to 15. So the landlord can't be able to pay this money out of his own profit. It means you'll have to factor it into the rent, into your rent. So if you stay in people's houses, you'll have to cost some more money. There's the aspect of the textile, where we have the textile, which is also a key thing, where that the sector will also be able to import duty-free under the East African community for the textile manufacturing, which is a plus because we need more of those. The issue of the textile is a tricky question because with the Mutumba from the US and the other European countries still coming in, I saw Rwanda when they were trying to do away with Mutumba. US, Trump gave in very specific threats that we will have to give you sanctions, but you know, Kagame is, I think, the real president. He said, go ahead, do it. And you know, it's about your people. Americans want you to enjoy the second-hand clothes after they have used them, and then you pay for them. So that they keep exporting to you. So if you don't know what is good for your people, you can cave in. You can easily cave in and allow that. But if we are going to have the apparel textile industry, which is, I think, has been helped with the COVID, with the manufacturing of PPEs. If we didn't have, then it means even testing for corona or taking care of the corona people could have been even more costly, because we could have been also waiting for importing of PPEs, and doctors will be on strike saying till they arrive, we can't be able to attend to any corona person. So it means these are things which are important, which we need to look at. Of course, the judiciary still is enjoying a very poor budget where it's getting 18.1 billion, but this should be able to be a plus for mediators because it means the litigation process is costly, but if we engage mediators, I think the cost comes down. So the judiciary should be able to look into aspects of engaging mediators on several other sectors and not limiting them to what it's being limited to now. So let's hope and champion on this, that we get a share of the 18.1 billion by us focusing so hard that we can be able to help the reduction of the backlog of cases, which I think is now at 500,000 or more. So this is what we need to do. So
okay, the Mediator
there's
Gibson,
also the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, which has been created,
Gibson,
whether it's legal or not legal, because there's
Mediator Gibson, we will take a pause on the briefing shortly, which is just now, so that we can be able to take the next part of this discussion. The introduction that we were having was with regard to the budget as an introduction, also as we were allowing our speakers to be able to get into the call. And I would like to thank Mediator Gibson Gisore. We will be having the second part of the discussion that will allow us to have more information on the analysis on the budget that is on Thursday. And without further ado, Mediator Diana, I will invite you to kindly introduce our next speaker. When starting off, I mentioned on the McKinsey report that one of the areas was reimagining Africa. And in reimagining Africa, it had 3 segments: accelerate Africa's digital transformation, put renewed focus on serving the needs of vulnerable urban populations, transform African healthcare systems with a focus on resilience and equity. So allow me to read what the report highlights with regard to Africa's digital transformation. So accelerate Africa's digital transformation, because this is now relevant and allows us to move on to the second part of this discussion. When the COVID-19 crisis struck, Africa was in the midst of a far-reaching digital transformation. In recent years, the continent has seen the world's fastest rate of new broadband connections, while mobile data traffic was forecast to increase 7-fold between 2017 and 2022. E-commerce has also grown quickly. Online retailers in Nigeria, for example, have experienced a doubling of revenue each year since 2010. Despite this progress, most sectors of African societies and economies still lag behind the rest of the world in digitization. The COVID-19 crisis could be a catalyst to help close that gap, accelerating digital transformation in sectors as diverse as financial services, retail, education, and government. It will be very interesting to hear from our speakers, because the digital services tax actually targets some of these areas and a bit more: financial services, retail, education, and government. The co-founder and CEO of Jumia remarked that a lasting impact of the crisis could be a change of mentality to the transacting and paying online. This will address one of the barriers to e-commerce in Africa. His views are echoed by the head of business of operations at Paystack, who told us, that is, who told the McKinsey team, we are seeing a massive acceleration in digital payments. For many businesses, the only way they will be able to survive is to accept digital payments. In a McKinsey survey of consumers in key African economies during the crisis, over 30% said they were increasing their use of online and mobile banking tools. I think with that introduction from McKinsey, the big question is, so what then is the hula baloo around digital services tax when business has gone in that direction? So allow me to invite our host, Madam Diana Oyugi, to kindly invite our speaker who will focus on the digital services tax. Thank you very much, Madam Diana.
Oh, thank you very much once more, Mr. Gibson Nayamto and Mediator Wangari. I could see all of you, but I could not hear much for about 10 minutes. Yes, so, but I've just seen a message. That is a very nice recap again from the McKinsey. Thank you, Wangari, once more. But I've just seen a message from Mr. Shafiq Tai. He says that he only has up till 8:30 because he needs to leave. We had, according to a convener, we had planned that we'd have Mr. Rashid first and then Mr. Shafiq. But because Mr. Shafiq has said he's leaving for another meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Mr. Shafiq to talk to us on digital tax and more. Sorry for all this mishap, everybody. And Mr. Shafiq, welcome. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Shafiq, could you please go ahead? Thank you. You're muted.
Unmute me.
Oh, really? You're muted? Not really.
Mr. Shafiq, kindly unmute yourself. You've been allowed to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, fine. Yeah, once again, thank you for introducing me and allowing me to have a conversation on this particular global digital service taxation. Also heard what Gibson has said and what the budget includes. And I've also seen what the McKinsey report talks about in terms of digital revolution that may take place in Kenya. If you look at, in terms of Kenya, it's ranked 3rd in the African countries with its user in terms of Bitcoin since 2019. And there is a high appetite for betting, borrowing, and purchasing online. There's a point in time when the government was saying that betting is not moral and they wanted to break it down, and now they're ready to tax it. So it's kind of contradictory in terms of where we're heading. If you look at the amendments that came in the Finance Act and talks about taxing, mostly what they're targeting is e-hailing platforms like the Uber, the Jumia, the betting companies, the online purchase, all these applications that you find that we are using a lot in Kenya. Now, if you look at in terms of the reality, most of these online platforms don't belong to Africans or in Kenya specifically. The servers, the online platforms all belong to European nations. Now the challenge comes over here that when you start taxing, there are issues. When you start taxing this particular Facebook or downloading of Netflix movies, in terms of commerce that takes place within Kenya, there are all these repercussions. This leads to things called trade wars. In India, they call something called the Google tax. India and France are one of the few that have actually started this digital tax. And if you look at the repercussions in terms of what it brought forward is quite serious, because they actually started a trade war where what we call something like OTT, this over-the-top tax. And these are, the targets were Google, Twitter, and Facebook. And this started a serious issue in terms of the American government tightening on the foreign nationals in the United States. It was about taxation that they imposed on these other countries. And in Kenya, if you look at it, we don't really have a bracket within which this amount will be taxed, even though it's a 1.5%. What is the turnover that we are looking at? Now, if you start taxing a platform that is just recently picked up in terms of the youth, even though the youth the startup capital was required when you go on and start selling. You take a particular item, put it on the website, and people call you, purchase it, and fine, you sold it. You don't need the shop. It's not a shop that you are conducting in terms of the one where you get an office and pay rent and do all these kind of things. The other area that we will have to look at is in terms of cross-border trade investments. Now, there is no international regime that has yet come up, so you find that it's a difficulty in terms of how many times are we going to tax. This issue of double taxation is a real issue. How much is coming in Kenya? And the challenge with digital taxation is that it's an ever-evolving platform. The laws must keep up to in terms of the changes that are coming in to be able to regulate in terms of what you're going to tax. These are serious challenges that are coming in terms of this digital tax that is coming in. So in terms of Kenya, which is leading in terms of its position, in terms of innovation, in terms of a tech hub in Africa, if you look at the startups like the iHub, we are actually going to end up discouraging them because it's going to become a very expensive business in terms of introducing anything new which is subject to tax before even business is going to be conducted. These are some serious issues that we must consider, because even if you give the youth in terms of targeting those that are not highly skilled, and say, for example, the youth service, and this is fine, there is no issue with that. But the taxation in terms of a digital tax brings in a whole new issue in terms of which may even end up stifling the innovation that we are talking about. Now, if you are taxing on the digital, then there's also the VAT, which has to be taken into consideration. This again comes up to double taxation, just like the road tax that Gibson just talked about, where you've already paid a tax when purchasing petrol, and then you have to pay a toll tax. And I think it has gone to court even earlier, and I'm not sure where it's particularly gone to. So without taking too much of your time, because I know there is another speaker, so me give him enough time so that we don't kind of monopolize the conversation. I will try not to go too much into this, but at the same time, you realize that these are going to raise issues. When you talk about double taxation, you talk about tax, you talk about the issue of cross-border trading, you talk about international regulation in terms of how we go to tax. There's no such thing yet. You talk about cross-border investments and trade, because of all these lack of tax regimes that have to be synchronized in terms of actually getting a tax. Now, these are areas that we have to consider. But on the positive side, if you look at the KRA, which is now resorting to a lot of work in terms of mediation and being able to, instead of going to court, there is still hope and scope for us as mediators in terms of by these statistics are of 30th April 2018, KRA raised 8.3 billion from ADR mediations that were taking place within the KRA, though that is still disputable in terms of how they appoint mediators. But there is still hope in terms of mediators to come into this area. I don't want to go too much further than that. I think that's enough for the time being, and I hope that's enough for the next speaker to pick up, so that by the time I leave, he's got something within which space that he's picking up and giving him enough to say something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shafiq. Thank you for that good breakdown on the digital tax. The worrying part, digital tax and VAT, a real worry, real wake-up call. Actually, when we just had that, yes, a wake-up call, when you just had that, we have to, the petrol has gone back to 16%, VAT not 14 anymore, in no time. And you should have seen the rush yesterday around your areas, the dash to get petrol before today, yeah? Without taking much time, I'd like to invite, yes, our mediator, Rashid. Is mediator Rashid? Mediator Rashid?
Diana, Rashid has dropped off, kindly.
Okay. So, excuse me about that. I'd like to then take this other opportunity to invite our lawyer Phyllis, for comments. We have Phyllis. Is Phyllis around? Is Phyllis around? Good evening, Phyllis.
Yes, good evening. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's a good session. And probably what I'd comment about is briefly what Gibson was talking about. Earlier on, I was in a session on tourism today. And one of the things we are talking about as Africa, it's important that we Africanize our products, our services. And apart from that, look, we are looking at McKinsey and they're doing their own kind of profiling here and there. It's high time that Africa did its own research, used its own ranking to decide where we really are at. Because whether we like it or not, the European community, other people, they'll have their benchmarks based on their economies and what they value, which is not necessarily African. It's high time that African did more research and got our own standards and base ourselves in relation to what is really applicable in our setting, so that even the data that is obtained can actually be well utilized. We were in a situation, for example, whereby they were talking about the most safe, the 100 most safe countries in the world. And out of the 100, very few are from Africa. So of course, they use their own benchmarks. So it's high time we as Africans, whether it's mediation, whether it's tourism and the economic space and all that, we should localize or Africanize our standards. So much, so that whatever results we have are really applicable. Otherwise, we tend to get results from elsewhere, and sometimes we cannot really localize them or adopt them and use them the way they should be used. And so that we can really see how we can improve ourselves as Africa. So that I felt was very important. And even as Gibson was speaking earlier in the morning, no, earlier, just not in the morning, earlier in the session, it's very important that we brand ourselves as Africans, have our statistics, have our status, and let the world start following us also. Let them also gauge themselves in comparison to Africa. So it's high time we get there. Yes, basically that's what I'd say. Otherwise, I really appreciate what the presenters have presented. That's just it for now.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you for that true reminder that we've had all through up till a few moments ago, that Africa, we must do this ourselves. It's about time we did it ourselves. I would like to invite Mediator Singombe. He had a question. He had a question for Mr. Gibson. Mediator Singombe, would you please? And in the meantime, I'd like to really apologize about the timing. I've seen it was supposed to be 7 to 8, but because of everything as it has been, we have 10 more minutes. So if it's okay, please bear with us just for 10 more minutes. I'd like to invite Mr. Singombe. Okay, I'd like to invite Mediator Christine. Mediator Christine Kipsang. As we wait for Mediator Singombe, I'd like to invite Mediator Christine Kipsang, please. Mediator Christine. Mediator Christine. Wow. Okay, I would like to invite Mediator Sarah Ater, please. Thank you very much. Mediator Sarah Ater.
Yes, thank you very much, Diana. Thank you for hosting the session. I actually do agree with the input from our speakers for today concerning the issues that have been addressed by the budget. And I actually would like to just point out what I think it was Phyllis who talked about. We need to get African standards for our African things. So I think that is something very important to be thinking about, and especially in our area as mediators. What are some of the things that we can be able to do? What are some of the things that we can be able to look at and even borrow from the African context, so that the way we do our mediation is actually practical and relevant for our settings here in Kenya? Yes, thank you very much, Diana.
I take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your time. We really apologize for taking 30 more minutes off your tight schedule. Thank you for all the inputs from Mr. Gibson, which is a proper eye-opener, digging deep into this budget, and also making us think and rethink that for sure we really did not read something wrong. It is so true, and we need to do something urgently about it. Thank you, Mr. Gibson, once more for this great eye-opener. Thank you also, Mr. Shafiq, and thank you each and everyone. I'd like to give this opportunity to our mediator, Wangari, to continue from this point. Thank you very much. Have a very nice evening. Mediator Wangari, please.
Thank you very much once again, Mediator Dan, and also for actually walking us through the discussions for today. It is quite a long discussion, and when I say it is a long discussion, it is because today we were getting views from persons who are in the legal profession, and we have our next part of it where we will be getting views from persons who are in the technology world, so that we can be able to have a diversity of views, and also just to be able to hear what different people view as the opportunity or the lost opportunity with regards to the digital taxation. What's very clear is that Kenya is not the first country, and we are sometimes, probably I would suspect, if you're the governor of the Kenya Revenue Authority, if you are the governor of the Kenya Revenue Authority and you go for the Revenue Authority governors conference, they probably are asking you, you mean you haven't launched, you haven't yet started taxing your people on the digital economy? And why I say that is because really, as just the McKinsey report highlighted, there's a lot of transaction that is happening. People now do not even own businesses. They actually run physical businesses, as we have known it. They do run platforms, and that is actually an accepted way of being able to do business. So as we get into closing, as is our tradition, we will have the national anthem. And also just to remind colleagues that our next conversation will be on Thursday, and that's on Thursday at 2 p.m. We will, on Thursday at 2 p.m., we will have a conversation on the supply chains. And the question that we are asking is who will come to the rescue of broken supply chains? And the details will be circulated for our Thursday 2 p.m. Conversation hosted by Mediator Diana Oyugi, and also with our resident lecturer Gibson Nyamato, and where we will also have a conclusion on the recap on of the budget. So ladies and gentlemen, we are inviting you, and we are looking forward to be able to be with you for this Thursday. We have been running a series every Thursday at 2 p.m. that has allowed us to explore in different areas with the topics that have been of interest to us. We also are running a Saturday evening 9 p.m. session on a divorce meditation, helping us to understand on the area of divorce and also the aspects that relate to families, and at the same time areas that relate to property. And with these discussions, we are hoping that mediators will become much more better in being able to handle the needs of families and also at the same time the needs of the clients that they are serving. In May we did our Q1 Mediation Day Symposium, and we are looking forward to our next session, our next one, which will be hosted in this month on Thursday, running from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we also are looking forward that you will join us and spend time with us on that day. So please mark your diaries on June 25th. Our big discussion will be on how the Asian tigers swallowed up international commercial mediation, looking at Malaysia and Singapore, the positioning, policy and practice, and hopefully Kenya can not only learn some lessons, but leapfrog in this particular area. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for joining us in this discussion where we were able to run through, cover the aspects of the Kenya budget as a recap, and at the same time be able to touch on the elements that relate to digital taxation and getting views from one of the legal professionals who is with us. So without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, we may kindly be able to get on to on our chat. We have the national anthem, and we will say it, and then now we can be able to say our good nights for today. So I thank all of you for joining us, and most of all, I wish to again say thank you to our speakers who have been with us. We will be hearing from young mediator Shafiq in due course. His connection has not worked very well for today. So, but then we will be able to spend time with him and also hear from him in the next sessions. So if you do join us in the next sessions, you will certainly be able to hear from young mediator Rashid when he's able to get on board in our subsequent sessions. So our national anthem is on the chat. Wimbo wa Taifa, our first stanza, Mungu nguvu yetu. Mungu nguvu yetu, ilete baraka kwetu. Haki iwe ngao na mlinzi, na tukae na undugu, amani na uhuru, raha tupate na ustawi. Please join us in saying good night to everyone. Please unmute yourself and say good night to everyone. Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. Please say good night. It's a delight to have had you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good job, Wangari.
Good night.
Nice.
Joining us.
You got a good job.
Thank you very much.